Thou light of my life, thou came to spread wisdom's glow over the path of my soul. Centuries of darkness dissolved before the shafts of thy luminous help. As a naughty baby, I cried for my mother divine, and she came to me as my Guru, Swami Kriyananda. And that meeting, O my Guru, a spark flew from thee, and the fagots of my God craving gathered through incarnations, smoldered and blazed into bliss. All my questions have been answered with thy flaming golden touch. Eternal, ever-present satisfaction has come to me through thy glory. My Guru, thou voice of God, I found thee in response to my soul cries. Slumbers of sorrow are gone, and I am awake in bliss. If all the gods are displeased, yet thou art pleased. I am safe in the fortress of thy pleasure. And if all the gods protect me behind the parapets of their blessings, yet I receive not thy benedictions. I am an orphan left to pine spiritually in the ruins of thy displeasure. O Guru, thou didst bring me out of the bottomless pit of darkness into the paradise of peace. Our souls met after years of waiting. They trembled with an omnipresent thrill. We met here because we had met before. Together we will fly into his shores, where we will smash our planes of finitude forever and vanish into infinite life. I bow to thee as the spoken voice of silent God. I bow to thee as the divine door which leads to the temple of salvation. I bow to thee, to thy master, Lahri Mahasaya, harbinger of yoga in Benares, and I lay the flowers of my devotion at the feet of Babaji, our Supreme Master.
Again, I'd like to wish you a happy spiritual birthday. Thank you. We're again celebrating the day that Swamiji met Master so many years ago, 65 years ago. And I'd like to read a little bit from the New Path, from Swamiji's autobiography. And it's not titled My Autobiography. It's titled My Life with Paramhansa Yogananda, because that's how he defined his entire life. And he opens the book by saying, some life having no inherent worth of its own, or no apparent importance of its own, I should say, because all lives are worth something, obviously, becomes important by association with a great master. And that's how he viewed himself, just as shining the reflected light of his Guru. So at this point, Swamiji, Master has agreed to see Swami. If you had seen in the newsletter, we described some of that journey from the same book. And I wanted to read the final part of their discussion. After some testing, Master said, I will accept you. You have good karma. And then Swamiji even felt self-conscious, like maybe he's accepting me just because I don't have any other place to stay in California. And he said, I can wait. And Master said, no, you have good karma. And then this part came. Gazing at me now with deep love, he said, I give you my unconditional love. Immortal promise. I couldn't begin to fathom the depth of meaning in those words. Will you give me your unconditional love? Yes. And will you also give me your unconditional obedience? Desperately though I desired acceptance, I had to be utterly honest. Suppose sometime, I asked, I think you're wrong. I will never ask anything of you, he solemnly replied, that God does not tell me to ask. He continued, when I met my master, Sri Yukteswar, he said to me, allow me to discipline you. Why, sir? I inquired. Because, he replied, in the beginning of the spiritual path, one's will is guided by whims and fancies. Mine was too, Sri Yukteswar continued, until I met my guru, Lahiri Mahashaya. It was only by attuning my haphazard will to his wisdom-guided will that I found true freedom. In the same way, if you attune your will to mine, you too will find freedom. To act only on the inspiration of whims and fancies is not freedom, but bondage. Only by doing God's will can you find what you are seeking. I see, I replied thoughtfully. Then from my heart I said, I give you my unconditional obedience. My guru continued, when I met my master, he gave me his unconditional love, as I have given you mine. He then asked me to love him the same way, unconditionally. But I replied, Sir, what if I should ever find you less than a Christ-like master? Could I still love you the same way? My master looked at me sternly. I don't want your love, he said. It stinks. I understand, sir, I assured him. This is Swamiji speaking. He'd struck at the heart of my greatest weakness, intellectual doubt. With deep feeling, I said to him, I give you my unconditional love. He went on to give me various instructions. Now then, come, kneel before me. I did so. He made me repeat in the name of God, Jesus Christ, and the rest of our line of gurus, the vows of discipleship and of renunciation. Then he placed the forefinger of his right hand on my chest over the heart. For at least 2 minutes his arm vibrated almost violently. Incredibly, from that moment on, my consciousness in some all-penetrating manner was transformed. I left his interview room in a daze. Norman, on hearing that I'd been accepted, embraced me lovingly. It was unusual, to say the least, for anyone to be accepted so quickly. A few moments later, Master came out from behind the open curtain on the lecture platform. Smiling at us quietly, he said, "We have a new brother." I wanted to talk today about Swamiji's life because it has been a life defined in discipleship to Master. And in that way, this anniversary of that meeting is perhaps, he would say, the most significant day in his life. He certainly treated it that way in his living. And for those of you who were here on the Thursday meditation, we played excerpts of the video of his last speech last year at this time, which he gave to a big group. In fact, they were trying to arrange in Palo Alto for him in California. It's your discipleship anniversary, Swamiji. We don't want to tire you. It's your special day. We'll put on a concert for you. And so this was the whole plan, but they didn't really announce it to him until a few days before. And he said, I want to speak. And I want everyone to come. And so people started pouring in we were in Los Angeles at the time, and Dharmini got in the car and drove 9 hours up to Palo Alto. She ended up taking the wrong turn. There's sort of 2 ways to get there, and there's a longer route to get there. And she was talking to someone, and she missed the turnoff, then realized where she was, but had to take it all the way, and then came back down from the north and saw all this traffic blocked on the road that she would have been stuck in if she had taken the normal route. And she came back down into the Bay Area to the Palo Alto community, found an open parking spot right next to the church, which is impossible, and walked in right as Swamiji sat down and began to speak. So, his life is defined by his discipleship. And first we have to even ask ourselves, why is that so important? What is so special about discipleship? What is so special about the Guru? People would often ask Swamiji, Do I need a guru? It started in India, where this story happened. There was a man who was a father of one of the devotees, and he was a wealthy and successful businessman, and he had been supportive of his daughter, and he had been in her spiritual quest, and he had been friendly to Ananda, but when he met Swamiji, seeing him, I think perhaps he felt challenged, as people often do, and said, "So, do you think I need a guru?" And Swamiji said, "Of course not." And the man was shocked and kind of, "Oh, okay." And Swamiji said, "Of course. There's no need for you to have a guru. Why bother? Unless you want to find God, then you need a guru." And that kind of left the man, the question back on him. And was he saying, you ought to want to find God? Of course not. Each of us comes to that in our own time and in our own way. And everyone will come to that. Maybe not this lifetime. How many lifetimes did that not occur to us? I want to come into power. How about that? Or I want to come into success, or I want to come into peace, where I am not bothered. Maybe this cave will work, but then we find the cave is cold and damp. And Master said he would sometimes see yogis in the Himalayas fighting over whose turn it was with the blanket. So, as long as this ego is with us, there's a problem. So, if we want to find God, we need a guru. Okay, let's assume for the moment we want to find God. I would think so. If you came here today, you've continued to come, and you're still here despite the fact that the AC is off. Something must be drawing you. Now, why do we need that? It's described in that beautiful poem, My Guru, by Master, speaking of Sri Yukteswar, which Swamiji could easily have said of Master, and which we could say of Master and of Swamiji. But it's described right there. He said, at our meeting, a divine spark flew from you and ignited the faggots, the dried sticks, the bundles of fuel, ignited the faggots of my soul, of my God craving. That's the simple reason why we need the guru. Is you think about it as enlightenment, has to do with light. And you can think of light as coming from fire, even from a candle. How do you light a candle? Do you look at it? Do you try to talk to it? Do you read stories to it? No, you have to take an existing flame from somewhere else. And with that you light the candle. That's what the guru does. The guru has that light. The guru has that flame already in himself. How did he receive it? From his guru. It's passing the torch, literally, except we are the torch in a non-destructive way. We ignite in flame of devotion. But we can't without that spark, and that's what the gurus do for us. At the same time, they are only igniting that craving that has to already be there. Otherwise, you go to a candle that has no fuel, no oil, no ghee, no wax, and nothing happens. That fuel has to be there. Both parts are needed. In fact, the autobiography of a yogi begins with a phrase which I wish I had memorized before saying it, but something like that the roots of Indian culture lie in the search for eternal verities, eternal truths, and the concomitant, meaning the necessarily resulting, disciple-guru relationship. Master didn't write the guru-disciple relationship, which is how we often say that phrase. He said the disciple-guru relationship. Because in some subtle way, we have to remember that we are the most important part of the disciple-guru relationship. Though we think of the guru as the most important part. But the guru's job is to liberate souls. And if there isn't any soul around that wants liberation, then the guru's out of a job. Then why did I bother coming to this planet when nobody wants anything? But he needs customers. But of course, it's also the way you could think of it is the Guru is a mother that is taking care of her children, and she needs her children to receive her. The Guru cares for us in that way too. Now I say all this, us having seen the full spread of Swamiji's life, us having seen that he made a success of his life spiritually. Master told him very early on, when Swamiji asked him, when will I find God? And Master said, at the end of life, but don't think about it. And Swamiji had to meditate on that phrase, don't think about it. And he never explicitly said this is what that meant. But different comments he made were, I had a lot of work to do. I had a lot of work to do in this world, and if I was only just meditating on freedom, I might not be as motivated to do all that work. Someone else said they thought that meant that you'll find God, but don't think of it as just, okay, I can now turn on the TV until the end of life and then I'll find God. There's nothing left for me to do. Master also would have seen, yes, another blessing, another spark of the divine from the transformer out there. Master would have seen that Swami would do that work. But I also think, and this is true, Swami in one of his Gita commentaries said, sometimes God will delay your liberation, and you have to trust Him, that He knows what's best for you. Ramakrishna said to Vivekananda, I am holding your self-realization in my pocket. I have the key in my pocket, and I won't give it until the right time. And so similarly, Swamiji said sometimes God delays your self-realization, and then he added, sometimes for the benefit of others. And I had to wonder if Swamiji wasn't thinking about all of us. The book of Brigu told him that he would leave the body at the age of 84. And on his 83rd birthday, because you know how the Indian reckoning versus the Western reckoning, I was pretty nervous. He turned 83 and I felt okay. Then his 84th birthday came along and I was nervous then too. And actually at that time when he turned 84, I believe, is when he actually had a little stroke. And he said everything went black for a moment. And then he came back. And when he came back from that stroke, he had been getting sicker and sicker and sicker leading up to his birthday. And right at the time of his birthday, he had this little stroke. And then he came out of the stroke, and the next day he was stronger and stronger and stronger, to the point that the cane he had been walking with, he said, I left it in Italy. I left it back at my house. I don't need it anymore. And this whole new wave of strength came from him. And the first thing he did after that stroke was the Nayaswami order, which again we're going to talk about that at the end of the satsang today. So when Swamiji turned 85, then we were greatly relieved, because we said Brigu saying 84 could mean 83, it could mean 84, it can't mean 85. And so then Swamiji was with us a bit longer. So even that, and the Brigu was infallible in almost every other thing that it said about him. So you have to think that there was some extension of his life, some delaying, therefore, of his enlightenment. But I have to tell you a few other aspects of it, because seeing his victory, we can make the mistake of thinking that Swamiji was born perfect, that he sailed through life perfectly, just like Master, that, these little troubles never bothered him, that he, sitting on the stage in the music academy as you saw him, if you saw him then, was basically his life. That he peacefully sat, everybody scurried around him. He would say, water, and the water would appear, all these things. He would say, you all move to Chennai, and the people would say, okay, sure. He said, it has not been like that. Swamiji wrote a book, The New Path, about his life. The first version of this book is called The Path, and it came out in 1977. Now, he tells the story of his life with Master, And then he tells the story of his founding of Ananda. And then he left out what happened after Master's passing to the founding of Ananda. He said at the time, my separation from SRF, YSS, is too painful for me to want to express in words right now. And so, just suffice it to say that it happened, and now I'm with Ananda. I'm not with, he founded Ananda. So, even to the devotees at Ananda, he didn't speak much about it. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story. It is written down. It's available online since that time. It's not that I want to withhold it, but it's heavy, and it can be too heavy. But all that is to say, from that moment that he met Master, September 12, 1948, he spent 3.5 years with the Guru. Master left the body, and Swamiji spent 10 more years as a part of SRF. He became the vice president of SRF. And then he was sent to India. He came to Delhi to India in 1958. The headquarters, of course, were in Ranchi. He spent time in Ranchi and Calcutta, but he also was trying to lecture around the country to get the people ready for Dayamata's visit. And so he had huge crowds in India, partly just for the fact that he was a Western yogi. Just the fact of seeing someone white speaking of Sanatana Dharma was enough to make people come, regardless of what he said. And so, though he said quite a lot, that's what kept them coming. He finally gave a talk in Delhi, and he said, the members said, well, we'll have a hall for 100 people. And Swamiji said, how about a tent? And they said, a tent? He said, for 2,000. They said, oh my gosh. But he insisted. They said, we'll be ruined. Our reputation will be ruined. Can you imagine a tent for 2,000 and 100 people sitting in it? Long story short, by the time Swamiji went out onto the platform, there were over 2,000 people there, clustered around to see him. He said, we must start something in Delhi. And this is Delhi in 1962. And he got permission from Prime Minister Nehru to build in the green belt of Delhi, to found a temple for Yogananda. It's an amazing story how he came to meet Nehru and obtain Nehru's permission. Because Nehru wasn't interested in temples, if you know Nehru at all, in building more temples. That's not what this country needs more of. But Swamiji convinced him. And then when Dayamata and the others back at America heard from Swamiji that Nehru had given his permission, they said, we don't want that temple. You are trying to build the temple for yourself. And they said, come back to America, and then they threw him out of SRF. I say this not with any anger. I certainly don't say it with any interest in having you be upset about it. Look at what Swamiji achieved in his life. If you think this was unfair, he said, the weight of any injustice done to me must be measured against all that I have been able to accomplish in Master's name since that time. He also said, I needed to be separate. I never would have left SRF, ever. He said, I was too loyal. I could only be dislodged with great force. He begged them to let him stay, and anyway, I won't go into it. But he was forced out. And he was lost from 1962 to about 1967, you could say. 5 years, because Master's work was Self-Realization Fellowship. It was YSS. There was no other aspect that you could say that's Master's work. Here, we see many organizations dedicated to Yogananda. Many different publishers even publishing the autobiography of a yogi. But in 1962, it was all SRF. And he also has written into the guidelines for Ananda renunciate members. We always hold a respectful and loving attitude towards YSS SRF as the organization that Master himself founded and named and guided. And that any kind of separation in our hearts, any kind of enmity, any of that is our responsibility to leave aside. And so in the beginning, Swamiji sent people to SRF, saying, you go there first and then decide if you want to live here. And so in 1967-68, but until then he was alone. And you can imagine how difficult that would have been, having been at the feet of the Master and then having been out. He founded Ananda in 1968. And from 1968 onward till 1976, he was busy trying to build the community. And he never said, I was with Yogananda, don't you think you ought to listen to me? Don't you think I ought to know better? He never used that unfair advantage over people in a discussion or a disagreement. He said, I always allowed sweet reason to prevail, or else not at all. Just let it be. He worked with people in a wonderful way that helped them develop their own strength. But for the first part of those years, people were basically trying to find ways, how can we have Ananda without Swami Kriyananda? One group even tried to secede from the village and wrote its bylaws of the new community, and each one basically said, and Swami Kriyananda shall have no say in any decision whatsoever. And at that point, Swamiji said, I had had enough of all of this one horsepower energy, as he called it. All of this one step forward, 3 steps back. I don't see why we listen to him. All these things. And he also knew that the community was growing in strength. They knew what they had. And so he had a meeting. And he said, I am the founder of this community. And I rarely ever say anything, I want you to do something. But if I do say I want you to do something, I want you to do it. And if that's not okay, I will leave and never look back. And so a discussion followed. People discussing the pros and cons of these options. And Asha tells the story of that she was brand new to Ananda at that time. It was in, I think, 1971 or 2. And she couldn't believe that people were actually discussing as if there was any choice in the matter. She said at one point, she just stood up with her, basically early 20-year-old voice and said, but didn't you hear he'd say he would leave? And everybody kind of looked at her, but more than half the people were on Swamiji's side, which was not luck. He knew that before having this meeting. He said, I'm no dummy. I made sure that there was enough strength. Not meaning he asked them, he knew from their own words. And so a whole bunch of people left. And he said, and that marked a beginning of harmony in the community. I say this to say that you go even to Pune, which is nothing like Ananda village after 40 years, Pune after 5 years, and you can see a beautiful thing and say, wow, what an amazing blessed place. And it is. But we have to not forget the trial by fire that forged that place. And it's not to say that we're saying everything has to be born from a trial by fire and get ready, Chennai. No, I don't mean it like that. But I mean sometimes in our own lives, we have those fires too. And we have to understand, just like in Swami's life, they are clearing away karma, they are clearing away limitations so we can rise to new achievements. Then, in 1976, 8 years of Swamiji building the community, writing books, having people come, having people and building relationships with people, having the community members themselves make the transition from thinking that Ananda is a place where I go to Ananda is my own community. Ananda is just us. That's the big secret of Ananda. It's Ananda, if you say, well, what physically is Ananda? It is physically composed of the bodies of the people who are members of Ananda. It's not a store. It's not a place. It is just a community. It is just us. People were making that discovery. It took 8 years. And then after Swamiji, things were finally going well, that's when the forest fire came and burned down 21 of the 22 homes in the community. And then that winter, a tree fell on the last one. And Haridas said, Divine Mother said, I said every house. And so they had to rebuild, and at that point a large number of people left also. Donations started to pour in for support for Ananda, and Swamiji said, and Jyotish and Devi too, that all the money that first comes should go to those people who are leaving. If they had built a house that was burned down, there was no concept of there was no insurance. But they said, they are leaving, let them be compensated. And Jyotish says in the Finding Happiness movie, which you'll see, I hope, soon, he says, we knew that we had our security in each other. And I would add in Swamiji. These guys were going out to try their luck in the world once again. They needed the support much more than we. Once everyone who left was compensated for their property that had been burned, then money started going towards rebuilding the community. But at that point, Swamiji started traveling the country on what was called the Joy Tours. And he traveled back and forth across the United States with a whole group of devotees, giving programs, interesting people in the cause of Ananda, in Master's teachings, and putting on big programs. And that's when more people started to come. But still, I would say, each soul, like each one of you, who has come, but this isn't a class, this isn't a free lecture, well, it is a free lecture, but you know what I mean, who has come and stayed, those people always come one at a time. In Master's life, Swami said you would think by hundreds, by thousands, they would have poured into Mount Washington to be with Master. But he said, by ones they came. And he said people came and generally went. They generally left. It was too much. Now, at Ananda the same thing is true. They don't go as often as that. They come and tend to stay more now. But Swami said the people coming to Ananda he's seen over 40 years are much more sincere in their spiritual search now than when they first were coming in the 60s and 70s. And still though, those who join the family, and I don't mean this like inner circle, outer circle, I hear the water, does that mean the AC is back? Okay, can you press, Jai Kumar, can you press that one, and then the remote also? The remote is there. Pamela, do you see that? Okay. What a lovely musical sound it makes. Can you make sure it's on 4? No, I'm kidding. 18, whatever, however low it will go. Negative if possible. Okay. So, Swamiji then, like I said, those who came to him came one at a time. And they still come one at a time. Even vast hordes come. And it's wonderful. Both are needed. But still, those souls who really feel called, who have those sticks and those faggots that need to burn into flame, that has to come from us. That's what we bring to the equation. And those people come one at a time. And again, I don't at all mean it like those who are in the club, not in the club, nothing like that. It's only what resonates with you yourself. Now, having said all of that, then skipping lightly over the years of rebuilding the community, writing all these books, a lot of betrayals, a few lawsuits, and finally finishing all of that, then Swamiji came to India in 2003. So you can see I've skipped over quite a lot. That book that describes these things, Swamiji titled A Place Called Ananda, which basically describes these missing years, which is a very innocent title. And a lot of people read the book, oh, A Place Called Ananda, great, and then, oh my God. And then the subtitle became The Trial by Fire That Forged One of the Most Successful Intentional Communities Today. It's a trial by fire. But as we were saying this morning at the fire ceremony, that fire, those flames, are healing. Those flames you can think of as burning up the disease, of burning up illness, burning up limitation, burning up ignorance. This affirmation on wisdom. talked about the fires of wisdom, the purification of wisdom. We are only removing those things which are our own wrong understanding. It's not that in order to be free we have to be burned, and so therefore pick something and burn it. No, it's those little things in which we have gotten off that are being corrected. And just as when we go through something that seems a little bit too tough, and again, you have to take this faith according to your own faith, because you can look at something very awful in the world and say, you're supposed to tell me that that was kindly meant, and it takes time to develop your faith, and it's good not to leap too far. One step is good beyond your current level of faith, but not 10. Having said all that, if we feel we're suffering too much, and I have gone through situations where I have said, Divine Mother, I think this actually is too much. I think you turn the dial way past 10, and now it's at 11. It's not supposed to go to 11. And I get mad, or I feel lost, or I feel hurt. I sometimes think of the story of Babaji sitting in the Himalayas and suddenly taking one of the logs out of the fire and turning and burning one of the disciples on the shoulder. Just like that. I mean, imagine if, naturally, Lahiri Mahashaya, who was there, said, "Sir, how cruel!" And Babaji said, "Would you rather see his body burst into flame from the stored up accumulation of bad karma?" And then he touched the disciple on the shoulder and he was healed. That's what the Guru does for us. That's what Divine Mother does for us. She says, this little touch is nothing compared to what could happen. Heavenly Father sometimes says, you have borrowed 5 and you must repay 5. With interest. And Divine Mother says, oh, let it be. She gives a little touch and says, it's okay. It's my Maya anyway, it's partly my fault. So anyway, just keep this in mind that as Swamiji has done, we can also do. And that when we're going through tests, his last letter, which you may have read in the email that went out, said, I am grateful perhaps most especially for my tests, because it is through them that I have been drawn closer to God.